Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here, and I wanted to shoot a midweek update video for you for Bitcoin, and I'm going to cover a couple of altcoins today. We'll take a very quick look at some of the stock market or some of the stock indexes as well. Before I jump into the content for this video, please do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and please take just a moment to leave a comment and let me know what you think. Also, if you're not already, make sure to check the description for a link where you can join the Patron and help support the channel, as well as get access to more frequent updates. So the first thing I want to talk about in this video, guys, is Bitcoin is doing something right now that is not normal for Bitcoin. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means it's a little bit unusual for Bitcoin. And what I'm talking about is this weird ranging market that we've now been in for a couple of months. I talked about this in the last video as well, but I want to go a little bit deeper today. I'll try to keep it concise, but here's the bottom line. When you get into a ranging market like this, there's a couple different ways you can play this. You can really zoom in and try to do some scalp moves, 0.5%, 1% type trades. They're a little tougher in this type of market because the moves aren't as big, so you've got to be just almost perfect to make that work. You can sit on your hands and try to wait for the market to resolve itself, or a lot of times what you'll see when Bitcoin is ranging is you'll start to see some altcoins start to pop. And when I say pop, I'm talking about they're gaining ground against Bitcoin. So the really big negative to the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market the last 12 months or so has been the fact that we can't seem to get into a trend. Right? We had this downtrend, but even this downtrend was very awkward to trade. It was not a lot of fun to trade because what we had was we'd have these moves down and then these, staircase patterns up, but then they'd throw these really big tails up where they would, liquidate shorts. And in this case, it pumped way up here to liquidate shorts before the big move down, then had another huge pump up here. So it hasn't really been the easiest bear market to trade. And of course, if you're a bull during all this, you probably were experiencing a lot of pain getting stopped out over and over and over again. So it hasn't been great because when you have a market where Bitcoin is basically just moving down, and regardless of what the perma bulls will tell you, you do have to accept reality. And the reality is we're sitting here in the summer of 2020 and we're still less than half of where we were in 2017, 2.5 years ago. It seems like longer than that now because the way this market's dragging on. But the major downside to all that is what I was doing in 2017 that was making me a lot of money was I was trading altcoins, and I wasn't trading, at first I was trading for US dollars, but then toward the end of the year I started trading for Bitcoin. So what I would do is I would, be stacking Satoshis, so to speak. And of course that worked real well up until January when everything fell apart. And then it started to suck really bad because I kept trying to trade for Satoshis throughout most of the bear market. And while I was stacking Bitcoin, I was actually losing fiat value, right? So I didn't want to repeat that mistake and try to stack Satoshis until this thing, established itself into a clear uptrend. My hope was that this thing would, resolve itself within 3 to 6 months and we could get back to the game plan. But instead, here we are, all these months later. It's been literally over a year since last year's high, and we're still nowhere near $14,000. We're still nowhere near that clean, clear uptrend that says the worst is behind us and the future is bright. So it's been extremely frustrating because there's been a lot of money left on the table where I could have been trading for Bitcoin and stacking Bitcoin, but because I'm not holding a lot of Bitcoin, I don't have any Bitcoin to trade, right? All I have is that small hedge fund. But what I'm probably going to do, guys, I'm just going to tell you now, I'm probably going to take the Bitcoin that I have, which is in that hedge fund, I'm probably going to start trading with it because I'm a little tired of sitting on the sidelines. I'm a little tired of missing the gains. I'm a little concerned about it, and I don't want to go too deep into this because it gets into the tax stuff, which is different for every person based on your filing status, your country, and all that kind of stuff. But it does concern me a bit because one of the major problems that I had in 2017 was I had recorded massive gains. But most of those gains were actually in the form of Bitcoin. So I was holding that Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin completely fell apart in 2018, The IRS does not care that I lost money in 2018. I don't get to go back and say, yeah, you know, all that money I made in 2017, yeah, you shouldn't tax me on that because I lost it all this year. I didn't get to do that, right? Totally different tax years. So I had a huge tax liability for 2017, even though the coins were actually, you know, in some cases almost worthless. I'll give you a perfect example. I had traded some Verge. I had made about $30,000 on the trades. Maybe a little over $30,000, but somewhere in that ballpark, right? And what I did was I took that profit and I put it back into Verge. Okay, now not all of it, some of it went into Bitcoin, but I bought back all of the Verge that I sold. And when it was all said and done, of course, I had this, you know, $10,000, $12,000 tax liability, whatever it was, on that Verge. But the Verge that I was holding was only worth about $700 when it got done dropping. So I actually owed more in taxes than what the coin was even worth. And unfortunately, I had to pay those taxes because that's the way life works. So that's the reason that I've been very, you know, skeptical about that, because if I'm stacking Bitcoin way back here at $9,000, $10,000, and I make, let's just say a nice round number, I make $100,000 and it's all sitting in Bitcoin, then I'm going to have to pay taxes on that $100,000 in profit. And then if suddenly in January of 2021 this you know thing completely falls apart and falls to $1,000, guess what? I'm going to be in the exact same position I was in 2.5 years ago, where the coins are worth less than the tax liability. And that's really the reason that I've avoided doing this. But I've also missed out on a ton of gains because I've seen a lot of really good alt plays on these Bitcoin pairs, not on the US dollar pairs. But on the Bitcoin pairs, there has been a ton of opportunity the last year that I've been unable to cash in on. So I probably will start talking about a few altcoins here and there, and I probably will start tiptoeing back into it. And I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to handle the tax side of it. You know, obviously I have to file taxes and pay taxes and be on the up and up. But I don't know if I'll cash out, you know, some of the earnings to pay the taxes. I haven't figured that part out yet. That's probably what I'll do, is just cash out like half of everything I make at the time I make it. So worst case, you know, it's a lot of effort for nothing. But, you know, I don't want to get into a position, like I said, where the coins, you know, have a bigger tax liability than what they're even worth. But yeah, until this thing makes up its mind, there's not a lot of trade opportunity on Bitcoin itself. And that's the reason the videos have been a lot more sporadic the last month, because there's not a whole lot I can say. Right? I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know which way it's going to break. And in a ranging market, it's not trending. You know, in an uptrend, it's fairly easy to say this is the trend target. In a downtrend, it's fairly easy to say, hey, this is going to be our trend target. Right? But in a ranging market, it's really much more difficult. Okay. So again, Bitcoin pairs are probably going to, you know, be coins where there's a lot of opportunity in a ranging market. All right. I think I'll talk about a few alts, and, you know, specifically as we go into this video. I haven't really picked any to talk about, but we'll dive into a couple probably. All right. Other than that, you know, when I look at this Bitcoin chart, guys, nothing has really changed. It's the same freaking story, right? If we go to a daily chart, this still looks like, you know, basically a double bottom to me. It was tagging the bottom of our range, and it tagged the 50-day moving average right here, and there was a pretty clear rejection off of that. That being said, if this does end up being a W, right, down, up, our neckline is sitting right here. It's sitting right around 92.39. And if you look so far today, and the day is fairly new, it's only about 8 hours in, but so far today, it has found support in that level. So what I'm watching right now is this level going to cave and then start moving back down? Or is this actually a W, actually a double bottom, where this thing is going to break through this 50 and head back up to test the top of a range, right? And if not the top of a range, is it going to at least go back up and test this $9,500, $9,600 level? That's what I'm watching on Bitcoin, okay? I can't really give you any more direction than that. There's nothing for me to go off of. It's just a range that's got to play out, and eventually it's going to break. And once it breaks and picks up some type of trend, then we can start looking at and saying, okay, this is an uptrend. This is what we should be looking for. This is a downtrend, et cetera, et cetera. But right now, we don't really have a whole lot to go off of. You know, sure, people can take a guess. People can, you know, do that all they want. I'm not a guesser, right? I'm going to go by technical analysis, and I don't have any technical analysis that gives me anything for a range, right? And double bottoms don't have price targets. They're a reversal signal. It's moving down. It's hit this bottom. It is a signal that it should move up, but it doesn't tell me how high it's going to move up, okay? So let's talk about stocks very, very quickly. All right, I don't want to spend a lot of time on stocks, but I do want to mention this real quick. The other day, a couple of days ago, I posted about this on Facebook, I believe. I know I posted about it on Patron as well. We did have a gap. This is on the S&P 500. This is not futures. This is the actual, like the index itself, right? So we had this massive gap that was actually formed between June 10th and June 11th. You can see it right here. And that did get filled in on July the 6th, okay? Which for me was 2 days ago, but depending on when you're watching this, it may be something different, all right? This was yesterday's candle, July 7th. You can see that there is a really clear rejection off of that level, okay? Very clean, very clear rejection. That being said, on the daily chart for the S&P 500, it's still well above this 200-day moving average. Almost looks like it's consolidating on top of it, okay? So I'm not super bearish based off of this chart. The S&P 500, kind of like, I guess, neutral more than anything else on the S&P 500. But when I go look at a chart like the US 30, the Dow Jones Futures, totally different story, right? On this chart, we had this big move up, which resembles the move up in 1929 before the Great Depression. And we're sitting here finding resistance at the 200-day moving average, which doesn't look great to me, right? We had talked about some levels in the past that need to, come down and retest this level. It did that. It bounced off of it, fine. But again, kind of like Bitcoin, now it seems to be in this range, right? Between this bottom here around like 24.9 and this top here around 26.3. So same story. I want to wait. I want to see which way this breaks. And as you guys probably know by now, I'm a big believer in Bitcoin has tied itself to the stock market, meaning if the stock market breaks north of its range, I think Bitcoin will probably break north as well. And if the stock market loses this range, I think Bitcoin is going to be suffering severely. And we could get some really, really nasty price action, okay? So just a couple of things to keep in the back of your mind. If we take a look at like gold, for example, gold is showing some signs that it is kind of toppy. Now, that being said, full disclosure, I did buy gold just a few days ago, right? And I bought it for a long-term hold. I did mention this in the last video. I'm not suggesting anybody should buy gold. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't buy gold. I'm just saying that just because it looks toppy, gold is a little bit different from other assets. It's very fundamentally driven, right? So yes, you can do technical analysis on it. Yes, you can trade it and all that kind of good stuff. But you've got to remember at the end of the day, gold is, the preferred hedge by a lot of people. So in times of uncertainty, it tends to do whatever it wants and move up, okay? So when we look at this chart, this is a monthly chart. So it does look like a megaphone type of pattern where you have a widening top and a widening, like the top and bottom are basically like a Pac-Man mouth. That is a bearish signal. Of course, this is a monthly chart. Monthly RSI is at, just shy of 79, severely overbought. So, it's a little weird to me that gold looks like this at the same time the stock market is so overbought. I need to do some research and some studying and see if that's, happened in the past. But I would imagine that typically speaking, when gold is overbought, stock market's doing poorly, right? Let's just take a quick look. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but let's see. This is let's put on a monthly chart. So when the Dow crashed back in 2007, that was October. So that was right here. Gold was actually overbought then too. That surprises me a little bit. So it's a little weird. I don't know what to think of gold. If you're a long-term investor, that's one thing. It's running into resistance back here, running into resistance here. So I tend to think it's got a pullback in it. But if it does pull back, I can see it coming back down to this zone down here where there's a lot of resistance, flip support down around that 61.8. So I didn't buy a ton of gold. I did buy a little bit of gold. But really what I'm hoping to see on gold is I'm hoping to see this thing pull back down to that area down there, and then I can load up around $1,300 to $1,400 somewhere in this pocket, right? If we look at silver, I actually bought a bunch of silver down around $11 an ounce. It was actually the SLV is what I bought when it fell on this wick back here. I bought it at like 11.20, I think. Hang on, I'll tell you. I don't want to guess. I've got Robinhood pulled up on the other screen. That's what I was using at the time. March. So I bought some on March 3rd at $15.61. I bought some on March 16th at $11.94, and I bought some on March 18th at $11.39. So my cost average on it was $13.13. So I did finally let some of that go. I let go about half of what I bought down near the bottom of this tail. Obviously did pretty well on it. I don't know the exact return. Like about 30% or so. But you know, silver looked kind of toppy to me as well. And I've seen some analysts saying that they think it's getting ready to start a bull run. So hopefully so, because I'm still holding silver. Don't mind missing out on some gains. It was just a trade. It did look really good back here. So when you're looking at this monthly chart, this looked like a bullish retest to me. That was one of the reasons I didn't feel too bad about buying it. The close of this candle was at 13.05, so I didn't buy exactly at that. But yeah, I felt like it was played out, so I went ahead and sold some of my silver, and we'll kind of see what happens there. I think what's going to happen, and this is just my opinion, I feel like if things start to go south, I think people are going to retreat to cash. In case you guys are wondering why I'm selling off some of my silver and things. Silver fell really bad, from back here in September to the bottom of March. It fell about 40, almost 41%. Historically, when you look at what silver does during recessions, it's not great. So that's the reason that I did sell some of my silver, but I still stocked up on gold. I think the gold is going to probably lose value short term. Like I said, I think it needs to retrace some, but gold is more of a hedge, whereas silver was more of a trade. Okay. So that's silver, that's gold, that's, a quick look at some stocks, it's a quick look at Bitcoin, and I just want to give you guys an example of what I'm talking about with these alts. So somebody in my Discord earlier today was talking about this one, and I'll just pull it up real quick. So this is, I don't even know how to say it, Cardano, something like that. I don't know a lot about this coin. In fact, I know almost nothing about this coin. I just remember I didn't buy it. A friend of mine told me to buy it at 9 cents back in 2017. I didn't. It shot all the way up to $1.40, in that crazy bubble. And I remember him saying, you've got to buy it, you've got to buy it. And I was like, I'll wait for it to come back down. And he's like, it's never coming back down, bro. And of course, it fell back down to 2 cents. But the amazing thing is this has vastly, and I mean vastly, outperformed Bitcoin over the last couple of months. People are all happy that Bitcoin has moved up from its low of around $3,800 up to $9,000 or whatever it is now. But the alts were really the much better play, right? If you were an investor, if you invested in this thing back in March, this is ADA or Cardano, whatever you want to use it, 712%, right? That would have been the equivalent of Bitcoin going from around $3,800 all the way up to around $30,000, right? That's what that's like. And if you look at it on a Bitcoin pairs chart, this is what I'm talking about when I say I've missed a lot of opportunity because I can't hold Bitcoin. This was a very clean chart. If you looked at a weekly chart, this thing was begging to be bought, right? It was actually sitting here from August of 2019. It was accumulating. Over 7 months of accumulation, right? Just moving sideways while all the whales were buying it and all the retail investors had written it off, probably either sold what they had or decided that they were probably never going to get their money back, right? But the smart money was buying quietly, and then you got what you often get after a long period of accumulation, you got the rocket ship, right? So if you had invested Bitcoin as an example, right? At the bottom, at this level of support that it tagged over and over and over, right? It tagged it here, 396, right here, 403, right here, 400, right here, 400, right? I mean, it just kept tagging that same level of support. If you'd have bought there and you were still in it, you'd currently be up about 264% versus Bitcoin, not US dollars. So if you put one Bitcoin in, you'd have 2.64 Bitcoin back, right? And that's what I'm talking about when I say that I've been missing money or leaving money on the table. My biggest hang up is it seems like a lot of effort, you know, compared to trading Bitcoin. You can take, you know, $10,000, use 10 or 20x leverage and be doing $100,000 and $200,000 trades versus, you know, if I'm trading Bitcoin pairs, I don't have anywhere I can go where I can trade with leverage, right? Because Binance.us, I don't think they have margin trading. So when I'm trading alts, I actually have to put up the money, which is a totally different story. But when I look at this, you know, what I'm going to show you is very basic textbook stuff. You can find this in pretty much any basic TA book, right? Look at this. So this is a 200 moving average. This is a daily chart. Of course, you know, fell below it. Back here, had a very textbook head and shoulders looking pattern, right? Collapsed, came back up, came back down for the bullish retest. See this bullish retest right on top of that 200 moving average. Moved up, consolidated, touched it again, and off it went. And what that actually was, it's going to be a lot easier to see if I put this on a line chart. Watch this. That was a W. You see it? Down, well, move, down, up, up. So as soon as it broke this level, right around here, that would have been an entry for an aggressive trader. For a conservative trader, the entry would have been right here when it came back down and retested that on another bullish retest. So the entry point in that was around 575. And if you look at what happened, a person who entered right there at 575 could have rode that thing up. They were still in it. I'm not saying they would have been, but hypothetically, if they got in there and they just sat on it, they'd currently be up about 153% versus Bitcoin, right? And you're talking over the course of less than 2 months. Massive, massive return. And again, that was a textbook play, right? Double bottom, retested the double bottom's neckline, and sitting on top of a 200-day moving average after, you know, months and months and months of consolidation. Doesn't get much cleaner than that, right? It really doesn't. That's a pretty easy trade to take. So let me know what you guys think, right? Leave me a comment. You know, do you guys want to start talking about some Bitcoin pairs? Because quite honestly, I just don't feel like there's that much to talk about when it comes to Bitcoin. I feel like a broken record. I don't mind talking about it, but if you guys would get more value out of me talking about some Bitcoin pair charts, I'd be happy to start throwing some of those into the videos here and there. All right. With all that being said, though, this video is actually much longer than what I had planned, so I am going to go ahead and wrap it up there. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please remember that I am just some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, so nothing in the video is financial advice, nothing in the video is trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional investment advice from a licensed financial advisor, which I am not, before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency, the stock market, or precious metals. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure and give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and make sure you check the description for a link where you can join the Patron to help support the channel and also get access to more frequent updates. This is James with Crypto Common Sense reminding you to please trade safe.